Not sure what's going on with her, but she's just not 100%.
Not 100% cool.
Yeah, there's definitely that.
Tyler,
Sean,
how are you today?
I don't want to be awake. I don't want to be awake. I enjoy doing this, but I don't want to be awake right now. My head hurts. I took ibuprofen and a glass of water, and now I'm having coffee. Not even doing whiskey this morning. I want to sleep.
So, my my plan was to do water this morning, and that I forgot to get water, so I'm drinking nothing.
I would, if I were you, I'd be getting water, just because I'm dehydrated. I have
But
a
would you be if you
dehydration
were me?
headache. It's stupid. Hold on, let's do, since I can't do any, I'm not doing whiskey, and I'm not doing any bottle cork ASMR, let's try this one. Good soup.
So that wasn't too bad, I suppose. Here would also might be a good one. I'll just take a random cigar cutter near my microphone,
Snip it.
and right at the very end, I accidentally flicked the microphone.
Ding.
Dong.
Not exactly ASMR, but very aggressive. It's like Sean's trying to cut off part of my anatomy. Just like old times.
It's a cigar cutter. Guess which part?
Nose?
It's your hair. I'm giving you a very slow haircut.
Oh, that's a very cool. Yeah, it's an ingenious way of using a cigar cutter. What are we doing this morning?
Barely eking by.
Well, I mean, other than the obvious.
Well, I figured what we would talk about. I'll go ahead and spring this on you right now. It's not like I told you about this a number of days ago.
No.
We talk about part 4 of The Way of Kings.
Crap, I'm unprepared.
Oh no.
It's been sprung on me.
The penultimate part of this book. And I said that only so I could use the word penultimate.
It is fun to say penultimate. It's also the longest part of this book. I've said that once already this morning. I actually haven't double checked to see if it's the longest part of the book, but good lord, it has to be. There's so much information in this section.
Well,
It's quite
yes and no.
action-packed, so it's fine.
Yes and no. Like, it has the most things happen, but it doesn't have any particular. It doesn't really have any information. You know, like
we are kind of done with backstory and everything at that point, and that's true. But at the same time, I there's so much stuff happening. I mean, like, we do have a battle scene that is very intense. The stuff with Shallan and Yasna finally gets interesting because, my goodness, I hate that part of the story. Until part 4 and part 5, I don't like their story very much. It's kind of annoying.
Tyler. Shallan and Yasna don't make an appearance in part 4.
I said part 4 and part 5. You don't get excited until part 4 and part 5. Because there's just nothing. Yes, they do.
Yasna is mentioned, but no, they don't have an actual appearance in part 4.
Unless I accidentally listened to part 5 while I wasn't paying attention. It's possible. Wait, hold on. So is part 3 where all of the poisoning happens?
Yes. Yeah. Part 3 is where Shallan gets poisoned, and then Yasna kicks her out, and that's basically where their story has ended up to this point.
I get part. It's been long enough since I've listened to these that they do bleed into each other just a touch.
Yeah. See, I have this opened up right here. Part 4, Storm's Illusion. Dalinar, Kaladin, Adolin, Navani.
And you believe that?
Yes.
Okay.
Fool that I am.
Fool that I am. Excuse me. So part 4. Let's see. So we do get. We're not doing any of the little weird things in between, right? Not any of the little stories that happen between part 3 and part 2 and part 3 and all that kind of stuff, like the little short ones about people that don't matter and I hate them.
Well, those don't really make an appearance in part 4 either. Part 4 is just meat.
Part 4 as a whole is me, but I'm saying, like, have we been talking about any of them at all? Because I don't believe they tie in, but in a way that you don't need to hear them.
We kind of mentioned the interludes a little bit as we came across them. Yes.
They're so annoying.
The interludes that we kept foolishly calling flashbacks.
Yeah, I mean, maybe some of them are. Who knows? I can't figure it out. I feel like some of them must be flashbacks, and then some of them might be happening right now. And then I might want to be stabbing my eyes out when I read them.
Some of them might be flash mobs.
It could be. Idiot. Excuse me. I keep burping. So, I believe, now, if memory serves correctly, the beginning to part 4, I believe we open with Dalinar and his sons talking about his potential for abdication.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I don't think we need to hit everything in detail, because obviously it's very long, and honestly, to hit every single thing is kind of pointless. And I do think kind of the point of doing these book clubby type things for the stories is not to tell the entire story, but maybe touch on the things that we find the most interesting. But I will say in this first chapter, I do really like Dalinar's vision that he has. It's one of the very cool ones. So we have the moment where he has a vision and he's seeing it from the place of a soldier at a kind of raggedy outpost, and he actually gets to witness the Radiants when they give up on their oath, when they leave all their shard plate and their weapons and everything, and then the men come and take them. Yeah, and yeah, it's one of the more intense ones for me.
Yeah, so I had started on book 2, about a year ago, before I realized that we should be doing that, before we had the idea. Well, really before we had the idea to do the podcast. And then once I realized that we might be doing that, I stopped reading it, so I got a portion of the way through it. And I didn't get nearly enough information from book 2 to confirm to be told that this is what happened at that time. But there were a few other things I learned about the Radiants and about how their particular shard blades and shard plate worked versus other people's, and where their powers come from. Which we learn about something about where their powers come from in this very portion of this book. Oh, Patrick, what's wrong, buddy?
Mommy took away his lighter.
Oh. Mama took away his lighter. How could
she? Why do you have a lighter? Why do you have his lighter? Why, let me rephrase that.
Well,
his lighter.
It was
he
my
has his own lighter?
It was my lighter, which somebody, I couldn't tell you who, but somebody left on a table in his reach.
Yeah, I don't know what that could have been. Doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, but anyways, and with those things, I think because that I know what happened on the day that the Radiants left all that, but because it requires information that I got from the future, I won't say my thoughts on that because it's information that I shouldn't have.
Well, let me give a thought on it, because this is one of the ones that made me really think back to the opening of the book. So the book actually opens with a small group of who I assumed, after reading for a little bit, were other Radiants. And they seem like they're describing their weapons as shard blades and all of that. But I kind of think that maybe the individuals in the opening of the book, could they have been the one with the Dawn shards? That's kind of what I was thinking after saying, okay, all of them came and gave up their shard blades. But were those ones in the beginning the Dawn shards? The guys at the very, very beginning of the book, those were actually the heralds. Right. So are those not the Dawn shards that the heralds had then?
Probably. And then okay, fine. Here's my theory on what happened. I think the reason why the reason why the Radiants gave up all their plate and did what everything is, I think when the Heralds ended the cycle, I think all the Spren that were there, giving the Radiants their powers, and the Spren who were their shards, they all died. And the Knights didn't want that anymore, so they dropped off their dead Spren in the form of armors and weapons, and they left.
See, now, the only reason why I'm not necessarily inclined to say that that's exactly it, is because specifically in this vision, Dalinar makes the note that the blades change as they're leaving all their stuff. So, like, they're no longer doing all the glowing that you would have from someone who is, someone like Kaladin, who has the ability to, use the stormlight and everything. Maybe he would be able, because he has a Spren, maybe he would be able to make them glow like the Radiance made it glow. So maybe it's not. Maybe it's that they knew something was going to happen to the Spren. Maybe the Spren were going to be changing. Something along those lines I would get into and say, yeah, cool. But it doesn't seem like the Spren were dead as it was happening, because they were still able to make their armor and their plate and their blades glow as they were dropping them off. That's the only reason why I think that might not be it.
Okay, fine. I'm going to drop so I will drop this bit of knowledge, because it's actually something that I had before I ever read the books, because I guess it's not a spoiler, because there was a guy who was talking about the books and how the shard blades were the coolest thing, and he said, now this is not a spoiler, let me explain to you how shard blades work. And he said there are certain ones, and it's the ones that most people have, that it takes 10 heartbeats to summon this, if you're linked up to it. And the ones that are not, it said that is a manifestation of a dead Spren. There are some that you can instantly summon without having to wait the 10 heartbeats, and that is when you are linked up with it, 'cause it's the manifestation of a living Spren. So if the Spren were still alive when they dropped off their stuff, and the people were immediately able to get it and everything, that means that the Knights killed their Spren by doing that. If that's what happened, if the Spren were alive at the time, and then weren't, that means if that were the case, and I don't know if it is or not, because I don't know, but that means that the Knights doing that, the Knights themselves killed their own Spren.
But if that's the case, then they would have had to have killed them in that moment of the betrayal.
Yes,
when they walked away.
Yes.
That seems possible.
And
brutal, but possible.
Which adds a whole new layer onto it. But since none of the Knights seem to do anything at all, like, Knights Radiant magic stuff, my assumption was just that the Spren were already dead, and that's why they did what they did.
Okay.
And I think it was the betrayal of the Heralds that killed the Spren, and because the Spren were dead, the Knights disbanded.
Okay. That seems plausible, except for that it does seem in the moment that they weren't dead. In the moment of the betrayal, the Spren don't seem dead just yet in that case. But I think either one seems plausible. But also, they do really make it feel like the betrayal of the Heralds, or the breaking of the Oath Pact, all that kind of stuff, and that we have in the opening of the book. They really make it seem like that was a long time ago. Well, crap. I guess technically the betrayal of the Knights Radiant was actually a long time ago too. So maybe that was just the exact same course of events.
Yeah.
They all happened at once. That, by the way, the opening is brutal. Talking about what the Heralds have to go through in between their victories and when they die and everything. That sounds like I'm really curious to see what we're going to take that, because I'm assuming it's going to have to pop up again. Something else is going to have to happen with it.
Or we could just leave it.
Well, we're going to leave it, but I mean, the book. I'm hoping that the book doesn't.
No. I mean, like we could just leave the story. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, or and do we? Let's learn more about that.
Nah, let's not talk about it. All right. Well, we've already harped on that for a long time, which is fine, because that was a point that I really wanted to have a small discussion about. But it makes me. Well, no, I'll bring this point up when we get to not too much longer. We have the appearance from who I can only assume is our collective favorite character ever, as a joke favorite character. at right before some other events happen. And then there's something I think I wanted to talk about the way Sanderson is writing this, and I'll wait until then because I think it ties into it. But keep going.
Okay, so like
Pick a new thing.
Okay, so you said talk about the favorite character ever. So obviously the best character ever written, if it's not Puddleglum from Chronicles of Narnia, it's Dalinar Kholin. However,
This is true.
However, my favorite character is Hoyd.
Hoyd. Yes, this is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes.
His appearance made me really think about his appearance, something about the vision, and then the wrap up in part 5 has made me really think about like what was Sanderson's reason for writing this book. But is there anything we need to talk about that's important in between Hoyd and what we just talked about? I don't remember there being anything special.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. There was the argument about obviously about Dalinar's abdication, which lasted a grand total of 3 chapters or however long. And then there wasn't. I'm trying to think if.
Well, there's one small thing. There
so
is
Hoyd's conversation with Dalinar happened like just a few chapters in, so there couldn't have been much in between.
I think right in between there, I might be wrong, but I think in between there is one particular small battle that we could see Kaladin in, and we kind of get a glimpse. Sanderson drops some heavier hints about something being special with Kaladin. Like some real layups as to something is weird. Like you obviously, if you're reading it for the first time, you don't know what's happening. But like some points that when you go back, you're like, oh my goodness, it couldn't have been more obvious. And at least one person knew what Kaladin was doing at that point.
Yeah. Well, see, apparently because Teft figured it out during the high storm. Yeah.
Yeah. Teft figures out what's going on with him in the high storm, which is in part 3. And he figures it out, so he starts having Kaladin carry around all the Stormlight infused currency, and Kaladin being at the front of everything is effectively reflecting all the arrows that are being shot at him because he's using his Stormlight powers, which he doesn't know about yet, so we're not going to talk about it. But essentially, Sanderson gives some real layups and insights into Kaladin. And then it's during that particular battle that Kaladin starts taking all the wounded bridgemen, even the ones that aren't part of Bridge 4. So it's like a point of being like, Kaladin's a real hero, and you're like, is he really, or is he just trying to make up for the fact that he sucks? I mean, it's just one of those kind of things.
Yeah, but it does, like, I think that's the reason why I think that's the reason why Sanderson made Kaladin and Shallan be the ones that were the one to take on the Knights Radiant stuff.
They're both redemption stories.
Yeah. It's like, look, you can be an absolute sack of crap and still turn into this.
And I don't want to get into this again, but I do think the more I read it, the more I do kind of dislike Kaladin as a core character. Like, you like the things that he does, but I'm just like, man, I mean, like, if you read this, and I just have, this is just the way I'm assuming this is the case. If you're reading these books and you're like, I relate so much more with Kaladin than I do with Dalinar. Oh, it's because you're a crap person. Which is fine. But at any rate, that was just a little battle there. Nothing crazy happens by any means. You just get some hints into what's going to happen very soon with Kaladin. And then we kind of jump back to Dalinar. And he being very scared that he's about to be betrayed by another High Prince and be blamed for the attempted assassination of the king.
Yeah, and actually, I want to go do one thing into the relating with Dalinar and Kaladin. And thinking about this, as Kaladin starts to take on the virtues of the Knights Radiant, he starts to be somewhat virtuous himself. Like,
yes.
if it wasn't for his having initially accepted, for his initially having accepted life before death, which is the first virtue of the knights, he absolutely would not have gone back and did a certain thing that he did that we're going to talk about later. He absolutely would not have done that thing. And then while he's there, he discovers the second virtue, which is protect those who cannot protect themselves. And that, and so he seems to be becoming slowly virtuous as he learns and accepts the virtues. And that's all actually kind of Dalinar's story, because he wasn't, as good in the events that happened before the primary events of the book. He wasn't really a good person. But he wanted to stop being a bad person. The difference between Dalinar and Kaladin is Dalinar chose to abide by certain virtues, while Kaladin had them forced upon him. But it's almost, besides that, it's almost the same story. Like, he screwed up, he was a terrible person, and then he started following certain virtues and became this fantastic person. We just are seeing Dalinar after he's become the fantastic person, but that goes to show that there's hope for Kaladin becoming a good person.
Okay, so yes, and this is the other tie-in to the thing I wanted to talk about. So while we're at this, I completely agree with you. I'm not diverting. We're actually going to jump right back into that, but I want to set the moment for what sparked the two things I was thinking about for Sanderson's backbone of writing the story. So we have Dalinar at a particular evening meal where all the main and really important people all eat together, which is the custom for their royalty, for whatever, for their hierarchy. It doesn't really matter. They're eating there, and then Wit / Hoyd makes a very different appearance than he has so far in the books. He's normally just sitting around like making fun of people and being clever, and he drops in next to Dalinar while he's eating, and he says a bunch of cryptic stuff to him. And he really is a great character. He's fantastic. He's definitely something far different than what he's appearing to be. I don't think that's that's not some big revelation. He's clearly something else, something more important. And in this conversation, we don't have to hit on all the little points, but I start to think about whenever someone writes a story, even if it's like a fantasy novel like this is, there has to be like a reason why you wrote it. There has to be like an actual story, or not an actual story, but an actual we'll say a concept. And for me, it's especially as we get further on, and I won't, we're gonna have to spoil part of part 5 to have this conversation, but I don't think it's enough for anyone to really have an issue. It seems like Sanderson is trying to write a borderline anti-religion story. And I'll explain myself a little bit better there. His entire thing seems to be that here's a world that we are living in. Here are the bad things that are happening. All of the bad people who are doing bad things have just been us all along, and we are here because we need to fix it because God is dead. We are here doing that sort of thing. We cannot rely on the deities because they're dead. Evil as a concept is the only thing that is real, and we are here to battle it. Dalinar, we see as the person who looked to the books, who followed this religion, followed this code, but technically speaking, this code is sort of outside of his religion. They actually talk about like the house that he belongs to as far as religion goes, and this is not technically speaking directly in line with it. His virtues are still part of a religion in their world, but he's following them and becoming a better person. But beside him, running in parallel, is someone who is not even a fraction religious, but is gaining all of these virtues through his life experiences and realizing the thing he's supposed to be, not through religion, but through his own path. For Kaladin. But not for Kaladin, but for... no, Kaladin. I said the right thing.
Yep.
So you have a world in which people need to become better to defeat evil because God is dead, and yes, these religious people are moral and great, but most of them are crap. Only a few of them are good, and the really, really good ones, technically speaking, just came because they discovered what virtuous things are and good things are on their own through life experiences.
So, that is a possibility. An alternative is because what I came across was a very, very similar but not quite the same. What I saw this as was still like an unreligious take on religion. It was like almost borderline religious, but still extremely humanistic. In that, it's it's the same thing. It's up to us to do blah 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 blah. It's like we'll discover. It's like a discover God within yourself kind of humanistic kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
much.
yeah, but not so much God is dead, but more like when you discover God in yourself. Like when God is needed, you'll be able to discover him within yourself. And then he was, and now that he's needed again, discover him within you, and here he is.
Okay, so I would agree with you, but I have to spoil part 5 to do this. He literally kills God. I mean, I would be very inclined to agree with you because that's how the story seems, right? If you're going through part 4, if you go all the way through part 4, yes, that is the conclusion you would try to reach as the story behind the story. But then Sanderson's like, I don't want them to think that. Maybe I should kill God.
Doing parts in book 2, I still think that.
I think it could be either way. It's not like your theory's a bad one. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I would say I think he's relying on. I don't want to say I hate it when people pretend to sound persecuted and say like these people hate God and they hate blah. But I mean, like, it seems to me like he takes those steps just to set himself as far away from this being a religious thing as possible by being like, the evil thing is not the devil, it's just the evil, and God is dead, and what are you going to do about it?
Okay, yeah, but another thing, okay, fine, spoiling part 5, the person who dies at the end isn't God. The person who dies at the end is one of the heralds.
Sure, but he makes it like, he says the words, he literally writes it out like that to give you that feeling. Right, so I mean, like, yes, it's technically all. I mean, it's technically all some. That book is loud. Sorry, my kid's playing with books that make noises. I don't think he would want to get a different point across if he was writing it so explicitly. Because I mean, you think about in book 5. Or the book 5, part 5, he literally has a character say, spoiling again, here I am, the creator of mankind, evil has killed me. You should go save it. You, the people. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's literally what he does. So I mean, like, that has to be his, I'm just thinking it has to be his point. Whether or not he changes the circumstances of who this person giving down other visions actually is, whether or not he actually adjusts some things so we go, well, maybe more like this, but he like comes right out and says it. I mean, it's just too plain, too plainly written for him to be getting a different point across.
Yeah, but you have to remember something else too, and this is a very important thing. There was one. So the heralds did what they did to try to break the cycle. And there was one herald that they left in the damnation thing.
Correct. Yes.
And the herald that came back at the end and died is the one they left.
Well, it would have to be.
Yeah, but what that would mean is though that thing, because they mentioned this, that even at the beginning they mentioned that the heralds can die, and they usually do. So apparently what happened was he came back by himself and at the wrong time, and that he died. So therefore, and so because the heralds have the heralds were effectively men. They just were the highest of the high men, and so and so that was kind of the whole point. I mean, in the context of the story, they were men. I guess in the I guess in the that if you're doing like allegorical type thing, the heralds were more akin to like angels, but. And I think to kill an angel, that's how the heralds seem to me, is like heralds, like angels. And I think, in my opinion, like there's very specific implications to killing an angel that aren't nearly the same as killing God, especially coming from Brandon Sanderson, who's a Mormon. Like, angels have a very particular role in Mormonism, and if he's making parallelizing, I don't know, to his own experiences and his own knowledge of religious activities and stuff, I think there are very specific implications to kill a herald versus the other.
Potentially, but I mean,
and that's just, again, I don't know. I'm speculating.
really, and I mean, so am I, obviously. But I'm trying to find the quote in here.
Real fast though, give your quote and we need to stop, because this whole thing that we've gone, this whole thing is basically us discussing part 5, and we're not doing that today.
No, for sure. But here's the quote. The quote is, I was God, the one you call Almighty, the creator of mankind, and now I am dead. Odium has killed me.
But that's kind of that's kind of the point, though. I think, because I think that is the thing. God is gone. When we find him in ourselves, he'll come back again when he's needed. That's what I said.
We could get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, that's what I said a second ago too. We could get there. We could change something in the narrative that he's given us so far by getting more information. But he is laying it out so thick and so plain from a story point. I'm not saying we're going to come back and go, oh yeah, God, the creator of all men, is actually dead. But I mean, like, we could find out more information that changes our opinion and perception of this moment. But in this moment right now, you finish book 1. Book 1 is, you are your own saving grace. You are your own help here. You need to figure it out to get past evil, because God's not helping you.
Yeah. Oh, no matter what, it's grossly humanistic. Yeah. No matter what conclusion you reach, you have to take that particular journey to get there.
Yeah, aggressively. So yeah, we could find something else, and I'm sure it'll be interesting either way, because he's a phenomenal author. But for me, that's the point of this particular book, is to get that point across. And you're right, we should definitely move on. This is what book club things are for, but we are really harping.
Yeah, and it's fine to harp on stuff that happens in book 4, I think. But since we moved on to part 5, and we shouldn't have, is the problem.
Yeah. Okay, so after the so essentially just to wrap up of that moment we were talking about with Hoyd.
Speaking of, so since we're speaking of Hoyd, we're gonna jump ahead a little bit, but it's okay because we're assuming that everyone in here has read part 4 in its entirety, so we can jump around as much as we want. Don't have to talk about it in order. Since we're talking about Hoyd, I love Hoyd's conversation with Kaladin. Because the whole thing is just perfect. Because it's just this whole thing is back and forth, is this dance between Hoyd and Kaladin. Is like, oh, I'm gonna say this thing that makes it seem like I know who you are. And Kaladin's like, what? Said, yes, like this. You're a bridgeman. Oh, I'm going to say this other thing to make it seem like I know who you are. What? Because of this. And Cal's like, okay. And then at the very end, it's like, all right, see you later, Kaladin.
He's such a great character. And like, he clearly knows so much more than what he's making obvious. He's clearly something much more important. I mean, was it you who said to me, or did I come up with this on my own, that like it seems like he might be some kind of weird Spren in some weird way, or something weird like that?
You might have said that. If I was to take a guess right now, so this book is this author is not a particularly predictable author. I have read predictable authors and stuff, so there's no basis and foundation to my guess. But if I had to take a guess right now, Hoyd is either is either an incarnation of one of the heralds or the Almighty.
the Almighty's always been my guess. If he's not some kind of spren, I feel like my saying he's the Almighty is too big of a guess. But I do feel like that's a really, really solid one. If I were to do a guess that's more grounded and maybe what I would say a predictable author might do in some cases is make him like a spren or something important but not crazily important. But if I were to say what's your real guess, yes, the Almighty is my actual guess.
Yeah, so that said, though, I think it's important to say that the Almighty did say that he's pretty sure he can get me out of this.
I understood the reference.
Great movie. Great movie. Fantastic movie. But for everyone else, you're screwed. Anyways, let's see. Baby, I can't play with that right now. It's loud and noisy. Okay, so at the end of that feast, that little moment there with Hoyd and Dalinar Colin.
Dalinar Colin.
We do see some of his fears are unrealized as he thinks his longtime friend, the other High Prince, is not trying to frame him for the attempted assassination of the king. He is, in fact, in that moment, he is not trying to frame him or do anything bad to him. That happens soon.
Yeah. Also, here's the thing. Too. There's two things that could be told about this. About that could be said about this. The thing about like, all right, if you really want me to say in front of all these people, Dalinar, okay, fine. But remember, you asked for this. So I discovered this and this and this, and I discovered this, and I discovered that. So Dalinar's innocent, and just like the build, and then on there, I don't know if that's manufactured suspense or if it's supposed to give the reader an insight into the suspense that Dalinar would be feeling, and maybe it wasn't actually like that.
Yeah, I think either one of those two things makes perfect sense, because that is kind of what's happening. It's all just a big build-up to literally nothing. I mean, even the characters, the side characters who don't matter, the people sitting around that don't even have names in the book, are just like, oh, and I get up and walk away just to show how boring of a revelation that actually was. And I think the only reason why it's worth putting in there to that degree is, one, we do have to wrap up Dalinar's suspicions. We do have to wrap those up, but also because I think it sets us up for the betrayal that we're soon to talk about. That's a big reason why I think they played it up for so long through different sections of the book. Because I mean, the attempted assassination of the king happens pretty early, and we have a lot of time to think about that in between. Because we know Dalinar is innocent. As the reader, we know he is, but obviously no one else necessarily does.
Yeah. So I thought that the two big bad things happened in this part. And reading this part, only one big bad thing happens. And then I skimmed over part 5, because I kept referring to them as the two big bad things and expecting you to know what they were. Skimming over part 5, it doesn't happen in part 5 either, which means it must happen at the beginning of book 2, which means you have no idea what the second big bad thing is. And now I've been just randomly mentioning this thing, being foreboding, and you had no idea what I was talking about.
Yeah, what are you referring to?
I can't tell you. It's in book 2.
Oh, it's in book 2. I thought you said in part 2.
Yeah, no, because I kept saying, the big bad thing is the two big bad things. The one big bad thing, of course, is Sadeas' betrayal of Dalinar. That's the first big bad thing. The second big bad thing I can't talk about because I thought you already knew what it was. Yeah, and I'm so glad I never came right out and said it at any point.
I've been unhappily avoiding book 2 until we finish this. I'm going to be honest with you. It's another reason why this morning I was like, maybe we can talk about part 5 while we're here, because then I can start listening to book 2. But no, Sean doesn't want to do that this morning.
But also there's something that we need to do with book 2. I don't remember how far I've gotten. I may not have finished part 1, and that's what I'm hoping for. But we need to do with this. We both need to go into each part blind whenever we go to do the book club. So, hey, this time we're gonna, the next time we do this, we're gonna do part 1 of book 2. So we read part 1 of book 2 and don't touch part 2, and then so on and so on. That is how we need to do it.
Oh yeah, that's my plan. It's the reason why I haven't started it yet at all is because I wanted to go into it blind as we are going to be doing it. In fact, I might even try to make it a point to not finish it until close to when we're going to be recording these, just because I want to kind of be fresh with them.
Yeah, I'm gonna. So I don't like cramming like I did, so I'm not gonna do it quite like that. I'm probably gonna be like slowly, like read a little bit every day up until the point of getting it done. But
sure. Let's see, what else is important to hit on before betrayal? So I'm just looking through. I don't have any notes or any synopsises. I found the list of the chapters.
One mildly twingy important thing that happened before the betrayal.
Twingy.
Yes. That was when Kaladin discovered his ability for binding.
Yes. Yes, that does happen right before because he's aware of some of the stuff to an extent of what he can do coming into the battle that is the betrayal, which is the reason why he's able to do well. I won't say what it is because we'll say what he does during the actual talk of the battle. But yes, he does discover his ability to do a few different things, because he is aware of being able to do it when he goes in to be the hero of part 4, more or less. And we don't really need to talk about it unless you want to. He discovers that he can do some of the lashings and stuff like that, but obviously we don't call them the lashings because we're talking about Kaladin, who has no clue what he's talking about, as opposed to our boy
Zeth.
Gosh darn it, I forgot his name.
Zeth. It's Zeth.
Zeth, thank you. I didn't hear you saying it.
That was my 3rd time saying it.
I can't hear you. But yeah, like when
you might want to call information.
What?
What? I said hang up and call information.
Hang up and call information. I'm sorry, I'm trying to pick up this child's book. Yeah, he just kind of discovers he can do it. If you want to talk about it, we can, but I don't think that section's important to talk about. Nothing in particular about it is holy crap. It suffices to say that he figures out he can do stuff.
Yes. Suffice to say, the word is one of the few we Knights of Ni cannot hear.
Aha. Said it again.
Yeah, but 90% of the time I have no idea what the heck I'm talking about.
Same though. Is that all that happens in between what we were just talking about in the betrayal? I don't remember anything of importance.
Effectively, they get mad at Kaladin for being cool, and so they say, "Oh, and by the way, you guys are going to go on every single bridge run."
Yeah. Essentially, that Kaladin does things that are really helpful and useful, and of course, once again, he does things just to try to be helpful to his bridge crew. And as is the case, every single time he does that, people in command over him are basically like, "Let's make life force for you, you piece of crap."
Yeah, which like in this case, it was more of a he just kept not dying was what made them mad this time.
This is true.
Yeah, and then so what he wound up doing, and he did this to protect his bridge crew, and this time it wound up protecting all of the bridge crews, and so then they're like, "Hey, well, how am I gonna kill him this time?" And then Sadeas came up and said, "Hey, you there, Lieutenant? Good call making that bridgeman do that." And he's like, "Yep, that was me." And then so he's like,
did that. So you're welcome.
So he's like, "Keep doing that." And then later, Kaladin's like, "Hey, we should keep doing that." And the thing said, "Like heck you are." And he said, "Well, it'll kill me faster." He said, "By all means, keep doing it."
I was like, I love that. Like, fine, if you'll die, then we'll do it.
But you have to promise.
You better be dead. It is worth mentioning that the reason why we are able to get to the point of the betrayal and how Kaladin gets to link up with Dalinar is because Dalinar and Sadeas decide to start doing bridge runs together because Dalinar essentially gives him enough he can't refuse by basically saying, like, we'll go out there, we're going to do more stuff this way and be better, and because of that, we're going to draw out more shard bears, and the very first shard blade we get, you can have it, buddy boy.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what about the expensive stuff? Because you can have more of that too. And he's like, well, crap, why in the world would I not do this? It's nothing but profit. So that's why they're doing these, well, the bridge runs, the plane skirmishes. They're going to be doing all those together from now on.
Yep.
Which sets us up for the betrayal.
The betrayal?
The betrayal.
The betrayal.
The betrayal. So, I don't know how much detail you wanted to get into the actual betrayal itself, but essentially, it seems like so Sadius is just waiting for a way and a way that he can put Dalinar in a position where he would most likely not be able to come out of it alive. And the easiest way to do this was to go on one of these bridge runs, on one of these plain skirmishes, and effectively get Dalinar onto a larger plane where there'll be tons of Parshendi, just tons and tons and tons of them, and then take away his means of retreat. Because obviously these planes, the reason why they have all these bridge crews is because they need to have people drop bridges in between these two planes that you couldn't actually jump across or just get across. So he effectively, once Dalinar has gotten onto a very large plane with an absolutely obscene amount of Parshendi, he retreats all of his bridges and kind of walks away and is like, how am I going to, I'm just going to figure out a way to make it seem like this was an accident because, there's no cameras, they don't exist. So I can just lie, and all the people who would be able to say that he's lying are dead or belong to him. So we essentially run into that particular situation. That's what happens. They get him onto this giant plane, take away all of his bridge support, all of his means of retreat, and effectively leave him to die. And it's in this moment that we get to see that Dalinar, not that we haven't been this whole time, but we get to see that he is an absolute monster.
Yes. It was like, what? I'm surrounded by Parshendi, all by myself? Doom music intensifies.
Doom Mick Gordon intensifies. Essentially, he just turns into just a absolute machine and is just killing a shocking amount of people.
I thought you were going to say something else.
Something else?
Yeah, he's killing a shocking amount of people.
A shocking amount of people. You got it all wrong. I'm not locked in here with you. Well, so he's pretty much resigned to death. Dalinar, his son, and excuse me, I'm dying. And a chunk of his men gives him a bit of a rousing. Let's go kill some orcs. And they start doing all of that, and Kaladin and his bridge crew, who are effectively technically done, right? I mean, with all the orders that they've been given, technically what they should be doing is turning around and going back and being like, wow, sucks for that guy, and leaving. And it's here that we get Kaladin gets to make the ultimate virtuous choice. Like, if I make this decision to run over there, to go save these people who I don't like, by the way, it's worth mentioning he hates all Light Eyes. Obviously, Dalinar is a Light Eye, so he's saving people that he hates. He's saving a idea that he hates, the people in authority that have betrayed him his entire life, his family his entire life, his friends his entire life. Everything that he should not be protecting, he makes the decision to go and protect the thing that he hates the most at the expense of almost certainly dying, which is the last, realizing the virtue. So it's very symbolic. The decision's very symbolic for Kaladin's character.
Yeah. Which, by the way, too, I have to say this, though. Of all the Light Eyes that Kaladin meets, he's like, all Light Eyes are the same. I hate them all. They're all evil people. They're all terrible and like this and like that. And I guess, of all of them, do you know how many Light Eyes betrayed Kaladin?
Technically the one.
One. Do you know how many Light? Do you know how many Light Eyes mistreated Kaladin of all the ones he ever met?
Well, really the one.
Like 4. It was like 4 of them.
He's just like, you just see him get bitterer and bitterer because, look at them making all these decisions that I can't stand. The people who are really giant jerks to you are not that much different than you, but that's fine.
Yeah, but they which to me that's just comical. But yeah, and this is the exact moment I was talking about when it's when he truly embraces the life before death. What is it? Life
Death before dishonor. Oh wait,
it's crap. It's life before death. Something before something.
Journey before destination.
Strength before weakness. Journey before destination.
Yeah,
and that's when he truly embraces it. Yeah.
He unknowingly truly embraces it,
Well,
which makes him like the ultimate human.
Yeah.
In the law.
Yeah, and well, he kind of does because it's his argument with himself / Syl as himself in his mind kind of thing that gets that on there, and then right then and then the rest of the time it's when he discovers by himself or with Syl's help, and also if it's with Syl's help, it's with the honor sprint, then it's related to the Radiance. So therefore, would it be somehow connected to the Heralds and the Almighty? So again, is it God within himself, or God outside himself, acting within himself as himself? Who knows? But
all of the above.
Yeah, he discovers the next words. Protect those who cannot protect themselves, and then he takes that, embraces that virtue by the nature of discovering it, because that's how that works. And then shoves his way in and steals, kills, and destroys the Parshendi, and everyone's happy and they have cupcakes.
Yeah, there is a really beautiful moment for me. I really like it. Because it's just like this other guy. So we do actually see the appearance of a shard bearer from the Parshendis. And we do effectively have a duel with Dalinar and this other shard bearer. And I love this moment in the book. It's a hair-raising moment in the book for me. So you actually see the shard bearer come out and effectively challenge Dalinar. He doesn't sneak up on him. He doesn't come up unannounced. He doesn't attack him, and they don't gank squad him either. Like, as soon as this guy comes up, like, I challenge you, they all back off, like, yeah, we're gonna let our boy fight your boy. This is how things are supposed to be. We're all technically honored here. And so, like, you have this fight that's technically just a duel. And we get to kind of see, like, I'm gonna call it the last shred of Kaladin's kind of dishonorable whatever. We do have Kaladin kind of sneaking in and technically saving the day by critical attacking the shard bearer. I say critical attack. He doesn't die, but you know what I mean. Backstabbing in the leg or whatever.
Which I wouldn't call dishonorable. in the circumstances.
Consider that they were in a giant battle, sure. But I mean, I do kind of, because like you have these two guys agreeing to duel each other more or less without words, and then like everyone who's on the side that's technically winning, and on the side of the guy who's challenging him while they're technically winning. You have this moment where it's kind of like they're being so honorable. The Parshendi are being so honorable in this fight by like backing off while they're having this duel. You have to wonder if Kaladin doesn't show up, Dalinar, who let's be honest, it would absolutely just murk this guy if he was at full capacity, which he's already cracked and already tired, and this guy's fresh. I mean, like, no doubt he would have just destroyed a fool if he would have been at full strength, which he wasn't. If he defeats this shard bearer, you have to wonder, would the Parshendi have kind of just like left and like respected that duel, and then like because they kind of acting like they're really respecting it. So I think that makes Kaladin's actions more like a bit of a rat, I guess. That's the only reason why I think of it that way. It was the only thing to do. It's probably what what needed to be done, but it's almost just like, you're a bit of a dweeb for that. Like, it was the right thing to do, but also like, because even Kaladin mentions later on how he feels kind of dirty and dishonorable for doing it. Like, even he feels that way about it.
Yeah, but it perfectly upholds the codes, though, because, life before death, he did everything to make sure he saved Dalinar's life, and then when Dalinar's like, we have to put a stop to this, I have to kill that shard bearer. Like, no, you don't. That one, he's going to live, too. So...
Yeah. That's fair. But I do love the moment that I really like is when Dalinar gets to the other plane. I mean, as much of his men as he could save have been saved. His son's back over there. The bridge crew made it back across. And Dalinar looks back across the shard bearer and he freaking salutes him. He was like, that was a good scrap, buddy boy. It's a cool moment. Because that's the cover of the book, is Dalinar saluting this mystery shard bearer.
So... I would have thought...
I either lost you or you don't believe me.
No. So I would have thought the same thing, except for this. Let me find it here. Where'd it go? There's a... what are you talking about, Patrick?
I don't know.
Oh crap, where is it? It's somewhere, but there is a map that Navani drew and since you don't have the book, you don't see this, but there's a map that Navani drew showing how each person went in to the fight and how Dalinar was overwhelmed and everything. And it has Dalinar's emblem on it. And that is a completely different emblem than the one that is on the standard that the person on the book cover is holding.
Oh no, you're right. But here's the thing: Brandon Sanderson didn't draw the illustration for the book. He didn't draw the front cover. I mean, this was a commissioned piece of art.
Yeah, but surely he said, "Oh, by the way, here's what it looks like."
Oh no! I'm just saying this is the moment that Sanderson wanted to capture for the front of the book, and an artist gave his rendition of that. Yes, it's not even remotely accurate for the exact battle positions and how the planes may or may not have been. Blah 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 blah. This is the moment that was asked to be captured for the cover of the book.
Well, if that's true, then that artist is a poopy head.
Well, probably, but they're very good.
Quit that.
Not to mention, technically speaking, this should be from the perspective of the Mystery Shard Bearer, by the way.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, I mean, it's from the perspective of the Mystery Shard Bearer, because that's not even Dalinar's colors.
Yeah, well, that's not Dalinar's colors, but it is what Dalinar's blade looks like. So I mentioned it being wavy. And why does the person across the way have a spear when they had a shard blade?
Oh, I don't know why they did what they did. I'm just saying this is the moment that was supposed to be captured for the front of the book.
I'm just saying the artist is a poopy head.
Well, I'm just saying there's some more we should talk about.
I'm saying drop dead.
Drop dead.
But yeah, no. Yeah, and then one of my favorite lines, like I absolutely loved it. One of my favorite lines for any book ever was when let's see. Well, I guess one of my favorite parts is then when Dalinar comes back and he says, "Hey, I'd like to buy your bridgemen, these particular bridgemen." And Sadeas said, "No, you cannot buy the bridgemen." And Dalinar goes,
real quick. The reason why this interaction is going as ridiculous as it's going is because if you've read the book, you should be keyed into this, but it has to be brought up. Dalinar comes back from being betrayed by Sadeas, clearly betrayed by Sadeas, barely makes it out by the skin of his teeth, loses a ton of his men, and then when he confronts Sadeas is like, old chap, how are you? And Dalinar's like, I'm pretty good. Hey, can I have your stuff?
Yeah, and he's like, no, I will not. He said, I will not sell you those bridgemen. And just so you know, though, a bridgeman is worth 2 bromes. He offered him 50 bromes each, so that's 25 times their value for those. And Sadeas, just out of spite, is like, nope, I don't really want to do that.
Strictly out of spite.
Yeah, and then Dalinar summons his shard blade. Sadeas absolutely poops his pants.
Yeah, because he thinks he's going to kill me, because he should be doing that.
Yes. And then he said, no, they're not for sale. There's nothing you can give me that would sell. He said, whoosh! Will you take my sword for him?
Yeah. And it's worth mentioning, if we haven't really brought it up, I don't know if we've ever mentioned this, the one thing in the world Sadeas wants right now, if you were to think the only physical item in the world I want, it's exactly that thing.
Yeah, a shard blade, yeah.
Yeah, he wants a shard blade more than any other physical object in the world. And Dalinar's like, I've got one, and you're clearly being a prick, so I am so honorable. I am so much a good man of honor that I will give you the most valuable possession that I own in exchange for what everyone else is viewing as basically worthless, because that's how honorable this guy is. It's the ultimate, the penultimate. No, it's ultimate. The ultimate moment for Dalinar being like, yeah, I'm the greatest guy who's ever been alive ever, and here's why.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, but yeah, one of my favorite bits of dialogue from any book ever is what immediately follows with Dalinar and Kaladin. A huge fan of that, because so it was Dalinar made it back with 2,600 guys, is what Dalinar comes back with, and then and Kaladin said, "Did you really just do that?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, come back to my camp. You will not be bridgemen. You will not be slaves. You are all freemen now. Good job." And so he goes, "Okay, cool. That's great. I love it." And he said, "But why did you give up the Shardblade for that?" And he said, "Well, Kaladin, what is what's a life worth?" He said, "Well, the slavers told me it's worth 2 bromes." He said, "Okay, but what's a life worth?" He said, "Well, a life is priceless." And he said, "Yes, and coincidentally, that is exactly the same value of that sword." He said,
Yeah.
he said, "That sword is priceless, a life is priceless." He said, "You and your men sacrificed to give me 2,600 priceless lives, and all it cost me was 1 priceless sword. That's a bargain."
Yeah, it's a really, really epic moment, and they kind of leads into the next bit of dialogue in part 5 that Kaladin and Dalinar have, and he's like, "Why did you do this and this to why did you risk all of this for just your men?" He said, "Why did you give up your Shardblade for just these men?" And that's the end of the conversation. Dalinar's like, "Fair enough," and he just kind of moves on. They both understand each other very well, and it's a moment where they're like, "We're gonna be bros." It's pretty great. Is there anything else worth talking about in part 4?
I mean, that's pretty much the end of it. They start to go back to the camp. The very, very, very end of part 4, where where you have the Dalinar being going back to being Dalinar. He busts in on Elhokar, and he sit there and he starts smashing Elhokar's armor, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And he is like, "I'm beating the crap out of you." He goes, "Ah!" And he said, "Guards, come help me." He said, "Your guards work for me." And then he's like, "What?" And then he summons his sword, and Dalinar smacks it out of his hand.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Wait!" And then he just beats the crap out of him. He said, "I could kill you right now." And he said, "But please don't, Uncle." He goes, "Oh, okay, right then." And
I'm not going to.
Yeah. He said, "Now do you believe that I don't want to kill you?" He said, "Is it because you didn't?" "Yes." He said, "See how easy it would have been?" He said, "Now you're gonna put me in control of everything." He said, "I'm telling you to put me in control of everything." He said, "But what if I don't want to put you in control of everything?" And he goes, "You will."
Yes, you will. Yeah, he just absolutely manhandles this dude, because this guy essentially keeps thinking that he's the one trying to kill him. So it's his. The nephew is like, "My uncle's trying to kill me," and he's like, "Actually, if I wanted to, this is how simple it would have been to kill you."
Which I do like, because that's what that's what Sadeas said before when he cleared his name. He said, I knew from the beginning it wasn't you trying to kill the king." He said, "Because if you wanted to kill the king, you'd just kill him."
Yeah, you would. But I think the quote is, "You would have burned the eyes out of his head and been done with it." Yeah, it was it would have been not complicated to murk this guy.
Which, outside of the context of shard blades, sounds even more brutal than it is.
Yeah. Which, in the context of, it's pretty standard killing people.
Yeah. It's still kind of brutal, but less so.
Okay. I'm checking chapters. I don't think I even forgot about that, so I don't think there's anything else in there.
Yeah, but going back to a life being priceless and stuff, it made me think of something that something that I said to Brooke the other day. I said, I can't think about the value of a bullet compared to the value of a person. Is that because anyone who I would use, a bullet that I have, my bullets cost a little over $1 a piece, or approximately $1 a piece. I said, and if I were to use a bullet on anyone, the bullet I would use on them would have more value than the person I was using it on at that $1. I said, so I can't think of that. The value is because that seems like a waste of my own money to have done that. But then I realized the only time I would use a bullet on someone, it doesn't matter the value of the person I'm using it on. What matters is the value I'm using it to protect. So, because, like, you know, my bullets are worth about $1 a piece. So if somebody came up to me and tried to harm or remove from me my son, I would then at that point spend $40 worth of bullets, and I'd still come out ahead.
What a psychopathic way of thinking about that, Sean.
I'd still I'd still turn a profit.
I would still turn a profit. Not wrong. Well, I mean, that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, that is it. Yeah, I think we're done. So, all right, guys, I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.